I mean, it's an interesting day to be here because today, Mark Zuckerberg, my boss, is giving the Harvard commencement.
Let's do big things, not just to create progress, but to create purpose.
Where he and I both went, but I graduated. Just saying, only one of us finished. But he gets his degree. He gets his degree today. But I was working on my post, and I'm going to do a post after his graduation speech finishes in an hour or so. And you know what I said is that when I graduated from college, Mark Zuckerberg was in elementary school. And the lesson you draw from that, and I really mean this so deeply, is like, two career thoughts. One is do not try to draw a straight line. And the second is find the rocket ship that matters to you. Hi, Deb, sorry. On the first, and what really matters here is if you try to plan out your career, anyone who thinks you know exactly what you're going to do for the next 30 years, here's what I promise, or 40 years, it's going to be boring, and you're going to miss all the good stuff. Because all the good stuff hasn't been invented yet. The thing that's really going to change the world, you don't yet know what it was. And so if I had mapped out my career, Mark was in elementary school, and there was no internet.
Right.
There was no internet when I graduated from college. And so I tell people, you want to have a really long-run dream, and you want to have a short-run plan. And that short-run plan, and it's important, it's not about what you accomplish, especially in the early days. It's about what you help other people accomplish and about what you learn. You invest in yourself, you invest in the success of your teams, of other people, and that works. And the second is the rocket ship lesson. So I was at the Treasury. I didn't really ever think I'd live in California, but from the point of view of the US Treasury, all the exciting stuff was happening out here in these companies that didn't exist. And so I wanted to work in Silicon Valley. But it was actually hard. It was 2001. Lots of people said I would never hire anyone like you to my face. There was a huge bust. The first tech bubble had just burst. And so it was actually hard to get a job. And when I finally got one at Google, it felt like the wrong job. I had a spreadsheet. Some of you have those. It had my criteria for my jobs. And the problem with the Google job is other than loving the company, it met none of the criteria. I was a business unit general manager, but I'm not that dumb. There were no business units. So that job title didn't mean anything. It was also a couple levels lower than other job offers I had elsewhere. And Eric he put his hand on my little spreadsheet when I showed him my criteria and how Google met none of it except that I loved the company, and said, you love the mission. This is a rocket ship. When you get offered a seat on the rocket ship, you don't ask what seat. And this is one of the most common career mistakes I see people make all the time. I'll have someone coming out of government or someone who's in legal or someone who's in marketing and they want to change careers. They want to move from marketing to sales. Well, it's not hard, maybe it's not a good example. From legal to marketing or from politics or industries. And then you'll say, okay, we're willing to take a chance on you. You'll start here. And they're like, but that's 3 levels lower or 2 years behind. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, if you're going to work for the next 40 years, why do you care? Get yourself. And the job I took at Google and the job I took at Facebook were more junior than every other job offer I had.
Right.
But they turned out to be much bigger opportunities.
And so when you're facing that decision of joining Mark when he was, I think, 23 at the time, younger than most of us in the room, what advice could you offer to us, those of us who find ourselves in a non-founding leadership position, about respecting the founder's culture while also making your own impact?
So there are a lot of founder-driven companies out here. There are elsewhere. But I think it's broader than that. I think the lesson is about how do you build the relationships at work that are going to last. Mm-hmm. And it turns out it's immensely similar to building relationships at home. You know what matters? Relationships in your friendship. What matters is that you care about the other people. You have aligned goals, right? When you've had friends, think about friendships in your life. We've all had this, where you've had friends that you kind of wanted the same things and you stayed good friends for a long time, or a boyfriend or girlfriend. And sometimes that doesn't work, but if you want the same things, and then you're willing to care about the person and really know the person, you can make it work. Probably the best advice I got from this was from Dave, my husband, when I was interviewing with Mark. Mark and I actually had a lot of stuff it's not that we didn't agree, it's that we couldn't figure it out. What was going to be Facebook's business model? Mm-hmm. What were we going to do on these things? And what Dave said to me is he said, don't even bother sorting out the substance before you take the job, because all you'll have done is sorted out today's substance, and it'll all change What you need to sort out before you take the job is the process. Can you and Mark disagree on something and work it out? Can you convince him of something he didn't believe? And does he convince you an awful lot of things he believes, because a lot of the stuff's going to go his way?
Right.
Pay attention to the process. And we spent a couple months really spending a lot of time together. And in that time, I learned a lot. And he convinced me of lots of things I hadn't thought of before. And there were 1 or 2 times when I convinced him and I watched him accept my point of view. And then on the way in, I didn't ask him for anything except a commitment to the process of our relationship.
Right.
So all I asked for was we'd sit together. We would always have meetings. So we agreed we'd have the first meeting of the week and the last meeting of the week, just the 2 of us. And I asked him, he would always give me feedback once a week. And he jumped in and said, as long as you give me feedback once a week. And that was when I took the job, was when he said that. So paying attention to the process by which you're going to work with someone on the way into a job, along with values alignment of what the purpose of the company is, I think is the most important thing you can do.
And he's really grown into a friend. It sounds like he and his wife Priscilla were incredible to you following Dave's passing. Can you share a little bit more about how that friendship has evolved over the years?
Yeah, people used to write about us that we were like the Silicon Valley odd couple, you know, and maybe in some ways we were, but we're not now. I mean, he is one of my absolutely closest friends in the world, and so is Priscilla. You know, Mark's an incredible person, and not just the brilliance we see on Facebook, but if you have a chance to watch his commencement speech today, watch it, because it has a very clear vision of what a global and connected world is. That is a vision that he really has that I think would be very good for the world, and is feeling like it needs more support than it has right now. And he's putting that out there into the world in a very brave and a very bold way. And I'm proud of him for doing that. As a friend, you know, when Dave died, Mark, he didn't just help me, but he really helped build my self-confidence back up. And it was one of the most surprising things about losing Dave was that, you know, I wrote Lean In. I've thought about self-confidence an awful lot.
Right.
And I spent years running around, you know, we have 32,000 Lean In circles in 150 countries. Like, I've spent years giving other people, other women, advice on how to build their self-confidence. And in giving that advice, I really thought I understood my own and had built my own up. I was pretty open in the book in areas where I didn't have enough. But when Dave died, I didn't think I was capable of anything. I could barely go to work and not cry. I was parenting on my own 2 grieving children. And what happened before Dave died is that when someone was having a problem at work, and people have real hardship that they're going through, and then they come to work, I would think my job was to take the pressure off them. I'm so sorry this is happening. Do you not want to be here? But what I figured out is that when I came back to work and people said to me, this kind of things I said to them, oh, don't worry. You know, of course you can't concentrate with all you're going through. That really undermined my self-confidence, because it made me feel like, oh my God, that's exactly right. What Mark did was take as much time as you want, and companies need better policies. I'm very proud of Facebook's. You know, take as much time as you want, but he also did, but you made a really good point today. And so what I learned is now when people are facing hardship at work, I will both give them time off, but I will say, but here's the project if you want it. We still believe in you. And that's true not just with death. It's true of people who have been diagnosed with an illness. I've talked to so many people who are working through cancer. And, you know, they'll talk about, I have chemo brain, no one thinks I can do anything. So if every time you interact with them, you say, oh, don't worry, that's helpful, but throw in a couple of good things they did as long as they're true and legitimate, and that's even more helpful.
So taking on big, meaningful projects together is the first thing we can do to create a world where everyone has a sense of purpose.